2023 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting to order. If you will, at this time, stand with me and we'll have our prayer and a pledge of allegiance. Father, we're thankful to you for the day and for the opportunity now we have to do this service. We pray your blessings on this meeting. We pray for insight and wisdom as we consider the issues before us tonight. May we do what is necessary tonight, but may we do it in a way that honors you and shows respect to each other. We thank you, Father, for all that you do for us, for this great place that we live. We pray all this in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, I'll do a roll call. Brandon Bice. Here. Robert Davis. Here. Plummer Tonsmeyer. Here. Jason Padgett. Michael Mullick. Here. Greg Seibert. Bill Booyer. Here. Jamie Stradiger. Mike McKenzie. Here. Rebecca Teal. Diane Burnett. And Michael Fletcher. Here. All right, we have a quorum. All right, you each were sent a copy of our minutes from our last meeting, February 2nd, 2023. Did anybody have any correction or comments on those meetings minutes?
Chairman, there's a minor typo.
You might want to turn your mic on.
Mr. Chairman, there's a minor typo. I've spoken to DJ about it, and she's going to correct that on the final minutes.
Okay. Any other comments on the minutes? All right, then I would entertain a motion that those be approved subject with this one change.
I'll make a motion we approve the minutes with the change.
All right, Michael Mullick's made the motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Bill has seconded the motion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the minutes are approved. All right, just real quickly, welcome to our meeting tonight. Let me just give a few comments about how we'll process through. We have a long, very lengthy agenda tonight. So we will call each case and open it as a public hearing. Our staff will make a presentation to the Planning Commission. We will have opportunity to ask them questions. At the appropriate time, I will call you by name if you have signed up. If you wanted to speak tonight and you didn't, you need to go back out and sign up if you want to speak on this particular item, and they will let us know that you have signed up, and I will call on you at that time. We would ask, especially tonight, since we have such a lengthy agenda, that you try to keep your comments to a minimum, say 3 minutes. I don't know that we have too many that are very objectionable tonight, so we should be able to everybody to speak that wants to speak. We will also have the applicant come up and speak. Planning Commission will reach a point where we will close the public hearing, and then we will talk with staff and we'll finally make a decision. Just hear me when I say, when I close the public hearing, there's always that temptation while we're talking for somebody to raise their hand because they want to ask another question. Once I close the public hearing, I will not allow anybody else to speak on the item. So I will allow you to do that as long as the public hearing is open. Please mute your cell phones so that we're not interrupted by that. And with that, I think I have covered most that I need to say. So we will go to our first item on the agenda, which is case number Z22-23. We've had a request to withdraw this particular item. So, and since it came in within the 7-day period, Ms. Rhodes?
Is this one? I'm just here to say that they have requested to withdraw.
Okay. All right. So I'll entertain a motion on this.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we withdraw this case.
Okay. So Brandon Bias has made the motion that it be withdrawn. Do I have a second? Second. All right. Robert Davis has seconded the motion. Any questions on the motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. All right, our next item is case number PZ 23-1, the Baird property. I'll ask, does anybody need to clear any prior communication on this item? Ms. Waters, you're going to make our presentation tonight?
Yes, Commissioner, I will. Hope you are having a great afternoon here today. As mentioned, I will be presenting case rezoning request Z23-1, the Baird property. The proposed request is located in Planning District 22. The property is located on the southwest corner of the intersection of Burroughs Road and Gardner Road. Its current use is RSF1, and the property consists of approximately 24 acres, and the property owner is Mr. Robert Baird. The request before you, Commissioners, is to rezone the approximate 24 acres from RSF1 to RA, with the intentions of utilizing this property for agricultural uses as a equine rehabilitation facility. Here you have your locator map and your site map. All surrounding adjacent areas are currently zoned RA. Here you have your property images adjoining to the east, to the west, across the street. Here you have your zoning requirements for RSF1 and the proposing zoning requirements for RA. When taking consideration of rezoning cases, we go through 11 factors, and the current proposal meets all of these factors. I'm going to skip through them, but I'll be happy to go over them in greater detail. There were no agency comments. Staff's recommendation is of approval for rezoning the property from RSF1 to RA, which is rural agricultural.
Okay. Thank you. Does anybody on the Planning Commission have a question for staff? Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Is the applicant here that wishes to speak on the item?
I think we have a Casey Suchkiki. Okay, sorry about that. He's just listed as the authorized agent.
Okay. You have any comments?
Oh, I was just here. They told me to sign up to speak if anybody else.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions on the Planning Commission? I guess you're pretty okay then.
Yeah,
All right.
thank you.
This is a fairly easy one, I think, for most of us, so I don't. All right. Is there anyone else that wanted to speak on this item that I didn't have signed up? In that case, I'm closing the public hearing. Does anybody on the Planning Commission have anything? Staff have anything to add?
Yes, sir.
All right, then I'll entertain a motion.
Move that we approve.
the rezoning.
All right, I was looking at Mr. Davis, made a
ahead.
motion to approve. Bill, you want to second it?
Second, that'd be
All right,
great.
Bill, second the motion. Any questions comments on the motion?
Mr. Chairman, just a comment. This is a
Recommendation.
recommendation to the county commission, yes.
All right, so this will be a recommendation to the county commission for approval. We have a motion and a second. Any comments, questions? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, that recommendation will be sent on to the county commission for approval. All right, we'll open the public hearing now for our next case, Z23-3, Carol King Trust Property. Ms. Boykin?
All right.
Does anybody need to clear any prior communication on this item? Okay.
All right. This is a request for rezoning. It's located in Planning District 21. It is currently zoned RV2, which is a recreational vehicle park district. The property consists of 3 acres. There are 3 lots, each about 1 acre apiece. The request is to rezone to B3 to allow for the purpose of supplying affordable living for retirees in the area in a modular or mobile home village retailer, or either do a restaurant. Here on the zoning map, you can see it is zoned RV2. To the east, it is zoned RV2, and to the north and west is RSF1. Across County Road 26 to the south is zoned RA. Here's a picture of the subject property. Here's some pictures of the adjacent properties. This is the current zoning requirements for RV2. This is the proposed zoning requirements for B3. You can see a restaurant is allowed in B3 by right. And then the manufactured housing sales, service, and repair is allowed with commission site plan approval. The adjoining properties are used residential, RV park, and agricultural. Therefore, staff feels factor 1 does not meet the rezoning request. And then also, the subject properties were rezoned from RSF1 to RV2 in 2021. That's why this may look familiar to you. If the rezoning is approved, the future land use map will not have to be amended. It's currently showing commercial. Also, I want to state the nearest commercial zoning in this area is about 2 miles away. Here is a map that shows the nearest commercial zoning. It is on Magnolia Springs Highway and at County Road 26. To the north and east, those districts are unzoned. These are the agency comments that we received. If this rezoning request is approved, they would have to get approval from the Highway Department to have a turnoff from County Road 26 or Grantham Road. As stated previously, staff did recommend denial. Staff notes that the applicant could ask for an RR rezoning, which would be more compatible for the area. This RR zoning would allow for a restaurant by right and the manufactured home sales with commission site plan approval just as the B3. Therefore, staff is still recommending denial, and we had given these suggestions to the applicant during the pre-app meeting.
Okay. Any questions for staff? Okay, thank you, ma'am. Okay, I have a Scott Curtis signed up for this.
Good afternoon. What I would like to say, there is a commercial dirt pit operation in the back of that. There is a power plant, a power supply right there on the corner. There is right up the road on the next corner, a service station. So I'm still requesting the B3 according to what the surrounding is. So that's all I have to say. And just consider, I don't know if any of y'all rode through that area, but consider, you know, that's what's around there right now.
Okay.
And we have communicated, we're wanting to put a catfish restaurant on the corner. We've communicated with the pit operator in the back to buy him out because he's finished digging that. And basically a catfish pond, you know, and go from there. That's all I have to say.
Let me ask you, have you considered the alternative zoning they offered? Or any reason you wouldn't go that route?
Well, I didn't understand that we could put the restaurant there also under that same alternative zoning at that time. I thought it was just the manufacturer dealership license. So
what we're saying, though, RR would allow the request that he's proposing,
Correct.
or the uses that he's actually looking at.
Yes.
Okay. All right, anybody have any questions? Okay. Thanks, sir.
Okay, yes, sir.
And I believe that's all we have signed up to speak on this. Was there anybody that we missed? Okay. Then I will close the public hearing. Any more input from staff or any questions for staff?
Selena, are we able to consider other zoning classifications in our deliberation, or would that have to come back through a second or subsequent application?
It would have to come back as another application so we can advertise for that zoning.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? Comments?
One question on, following up on the last question. If we table this, would that allow it to come back more quickly than if we ask for another application to be submitted and presented?
The applicant would have to request for this application to be withdrawn and then submit a new application. If this does go forward to the county commission and they make a decision to deny this property, he would have to wait a year before he could come back and request another rezoning request.
Yeah, I mean, I think we would look a little bit more favorably, at least I feel like I would look more favorably on an RR designation, which accomplishes this kind of stated goals of the applicant, probably more so than the commercial zoning that they're seeking now.
Would the owner be willing to do that tonight? We tabled it. Well,
Is that what we're talking about?
if it's
or-
denied, you run the risk of having to wait another year to come back to request another rezoning to the RR.
Right, right. Well, I don't think I have much choice, so, but that's my property on the corner, and I'm trying to keep it in the family. If I wanted to put a convenience store there or whatever, I think it's zoned because there's a dirt pit operation in the back of it, and there's a power plant there, and it's right between Magnolia and 65 and 26. That has a gas station there, so I think it's suitable for a B3. But if that's my only choice, if I'm not gonna recommend it, then I'll withdraw it and do what I gotta do, yeah.
Well,
But
we
I
have
think-
options, you may not like the latter option that
Yeah.
we vote on here in a minute.
But you don't want to wait a year before
No,
you
sir,
even have an
I'm not gonna do that.
opportunity.
So y'all recommend I withdraw and go with the other zoning? Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, I don't know, I hate to use the word recommend to you. I think you're hearing some of the comments. You need to make the decision from what you're hearing. I'd hate to always
Right.
push you into something other than to say, I think you're hearing some of the things that they have issues with.
Yeah.
So I think options have been put out there. You just need to decide at this point which option you want to
Well, I
take.
was not told I could put a restaurant in that zoning. I was told about the manufactured home, I could do that in that zoning. RR believes what they were saying.
Right.
So,
Well,
yes,
and
yeah.
at the risk of putting another option on the table, we can still take action tonight, and Selena, correct me if I'm wrong, he can withdraw the application still before it goes to the county commission.
Right.
So, we can take action, make our recommendation to the county commission,
Yeah.
and then that still gives you time to sit down with staff a little bit more, get a better idea of what those different classifications are, how they can fit what you're trying to do. And then if you want to withdraw before it goes to the county commission, you
We
can do
still
that.
write a check for 500 again to do that, or? Yeah, okay. So- All right. Thank you, sir.
Okay, any other questions or comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman,
This is a recommendation of the county commission.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move that we table this case for 30 days to give him an opportunity to rethink his options.
Okay?
I thought the plan was going to be to go ahead and take action, because that doesn't actually hurt him one way or the other. It actually allows him to decide then tomorrow he can still withdraw it, or he can say, let it go to the county commission with this if he wants to.
That's what I was hearing too, but I was,
Okay.
I just want to make sure that's what I kind of understood where things were going, so I just wanted to clarify that.
No, I'm just trying to make it as easy as possible for him to make a decision that's best for what he wants to do. So
So tabling it doesn't give him any benefit, because he can't change the rezoning and come back next month with a tabling.
Okay.
He'd have to withdraw. So if he decides he wants to keep going, the best thing you all can do is vote tonight, so then he can take it to the county commission as expeditiously as possible. Or he can withdraw it if he wants to, because they won't have made that final decision.
Well, I'll withdraw the motion then.
All right, so I'm still going to entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion, we deny the rezoning request
All right, the recommendation of the county
to
commission.
the county commission.
All right, so we have a motion by Mr. Davis that we make a recommendation to the county commission to deny the request. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Tonsmeyer's made a second to the motion. Any comments or questions? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion's approved. All right, this time we'll open the public hearing for case number Z23-4, Turner Property. Does anybody need to declare any prior communication on this item? Ms. Bonner, welcome back.
Good evening.
We hadn't seen you in a while.
I've been busy. Good evening, Commission. I'm going to present this case, if I can find it down here. Here it is. I'm sorry. Thank you, Buford. So this is going to be page 65 in your agenda. And this is the Turner property rezoning request. There are 5 parcels. I tried to make this as easy as possible for you, but basically one owner owns all of these parcels, and their goal is to one day have a future home on the bottom lot line down here. So they wanted to move that lot line. But in order to do that, they had to rezone to meet the minimum lot requirements. That one? Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, this is a locator map and a site map, and these are some property images. These were all in your packet that you received. 2 of the larger parcels are zoned RMF6. That is multifamily. And so you can see all the different uses, residential multifamily uses you can have there. Some of the parcels are RSF2. The applicant is requesting RSFE, which allows for single-family estates, which would be larger lots. This, I went ahead and threw in here, they have applied for a common lot line move. In order to do that, they need to rezone. So they're moving this lot line, I put a little arrow all the way over, so we will go from 5 lots to 3 lots, but all one zone. The staff analysis, staff feels that single-family residential zone is more compatible. If you look at the zoning map, that is the only area that is zoned RMF6. Everything else there is either residential single-family estate or single-family or rural agricultural, which allows for single-family dwellings. This is a map from when this district was zoned. It came in. This property came in at that multifamily. And at that time, it was called R3, High Density Residential District, which compares to our RMF6, the multifamily. This is also a map of the master plan. This is our current master plan. And as you see down there, the proposed zone was residential. And I went through all of these other analysis. I'm just going to kind of flip through here for the sake of time, but if you have any questions, please stop me. Staff feels the proposed amendment is consistent with the area. These are our responses. Ashley Campbell, our natural resource, has requested a copy of a wetland delineation in the site plan they submitted. There are wetlands on the property. The applicant has submitted that to us, and I would believe we just got it yesterday or the day before because the person that did the wetland delineation was out of town, but she has reviewed it And I don't think she's here tonight, but she was happy with it. If not, it won't go any further. Tyler Mitchell also addressed the Highway Department concerns with Josephine Drive. Any revised connections will be required to get a turnout permit. We had no comments from the other agencies. And this is our, as you can see, we have two zones here. We have the RMF6 and the RSF2, and both of those are going to be less intense. I'm sorry, the RSFE is less intense than both of those zones. So staff perceives the rezoning request to be compatible with the current uses on the subject parcels as well as these surrounding parcels. Unless information to the contrary is revealed at the public hearing, staff recommends this rezoning application be approved, and I will be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, Ms. Bonner, I have one question.
Okay.
If we were to rezone the RM6, it looks like to me there are going to be two parcels that are still zoned RM6. Are those not owned by this applicant?
Those two parcels, RMF6?
There's one along the west property line, that piece over to your left there. That piece there, and then down to the bottom right there. Those appear two pieces that aren't part of this?
That's right.
And
Those
they're not the
belong to a
applicant?
different owner. That's right. Those small parcels have a different owner, and they are not included in this. But the two large ones,
Okay.
Staff feels more comfortable with it being an RSFE zone.
And just a little quick point of clarification, I believe the one along the west line is owned by this property owner, but it has like a party barn of his on it. And we felt that it was no harm in if that one got left as RMF6, because clearly there's not enough room anymore to build an apartment complex or anything on there.
Right.
But it didn't meet the minimum lot size issues with that. They would have had to change that lot size to keep that. So we were like, well, no harm, no foul. We'll let that one stay RMF6.
Okay.
So it's essentially landlocked from right-of-way. more or
That's
less.
correct.
I also had a question. Mr. Chairman stole one of my questions. Parcel that ends in 57.000, there on the waterfront, are we
Yes.
creating non-conforming lots?
No, that's why we're moving that common property line. We
Okay.
are moving that, let me go back to that.
I thought it was just one property line. It looks like there's three parcels there in the waterfront, but maybe I was misunderstanding your diagram on which was the common line we were moving. Pick your slide.
Where is it? The one with the arrow. The one with the arrow, the subdivision. Okay. Okay, if you look at this one, these are just those three parcels down there. These are, and I'll show you these three. There. So those are the RSF2 lots. So we would, in fact, be creating a non-conforming lot. That's why we're going to move that lot line all the way over, and we're going to make those three lots one lot.
Okay.
Okay.
I see that now. Okay.
And that will meet the RSFE.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Okay, we have no one signed up for this. Was there anybody that failed to sign up that wished to speak?
I believe the applicant is here.
Okay, do you wish to speak, or, oh, okay. All right, then I'm going to close the public hearing. Does anybody have any questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a recommendation that that this case be approved.
All right, recommendation of the county commission.
Yes.
Okay, so this is a recommendation of the county commission. Mr. Bice has made a motion that we recommend approval. I have a second.
Second.
Mr. Tonsmeyer seconded the motion. Any questions or comments on the motion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries. All right, this time, we are going to open public hearing on our proposed text amendments to the local provisions for planning districts 4, 22, 29, and 33. Mr. Brown, we're going to leave out 32. or you want to include 32?
Because this was published with 32 in there, I'm not sure that at any point, at this point, the Planning Commission do anything other than make a recommendation that it be excluded moving forward. All right, we're going to move through this pretty quickly because we did discuss this in quite a bit of detail during work session, but this is in the public folder so folks can go back and review it if they would like. One thing I want to note on the Planning Commission item, this will actually be text amendment 23001. It wasn't titled that, so just know that that's what this will be. That's what it will show up when it goes to the County Commission as well. Again, this is a change to our zoning ordinance. You see the other ordinances that we manage here at the department. I want to clarify where these districts are. First of all, you have District 4, which we did not discuss this during work session, so you'll see what that is here in a second. But District 4 is up here in the north part of the county. The other 4 districts that are involved, 22, you see there, 29, you see there, 32, you see there, and 33, you see there. So I'll distinguish those as we go. So first of all, Planning District 4, we're amending the local provisions to clarify that those provisions currently say that no landfills are permitted, except for the county does have a property up there that is a historic landfill, and then there's a dirt pit that's adjacent to it, and they want to continue to operate those as a landfill. They're actually getting ready to make some improvements, so we wanted to include this clarifying amendment. And you'll notice what's interesting is these 2 parcels are on the border of Planning District 4. Immediately to the south is unzoned on Red Hill Road, so it's kind of just interesting that those are sitting in there. So it's more of a clarification than anything for Planning District 4. Okay, now we have a number of joint provisions for Planning Districts 22, 29, 32, and 33. I'm just going to read off the title of them, and then if you have any questions, we can come back to them. Again, these were published in the agenda, and then this presentation itself will be is already in the public folder. So the first one is landscape buffers for major projects abutting primary roads. This is identical to what was adopted for Planning District 37 last year. We have a proposed amendment for special landscape buffers for intense major projects, mini warehouse, RV parks, manufactured home parks, etc. We have native plants required in landscape buffers. We have a sidewalk requirement for major projects. There was some really great discussion about this during work session, and some discussion about whether or not we wanted to modify that language to clarify that this would only be required in the largest radius of the Lilly and Alberta nodes, which we'll talk about later on in the map, and that would be a great recommendation for y'all to make when you recommend this moving forward. We have something here for wetlands to be set aside in common areas. We have a requirement that, this is not a requirement as much as a leniency. It allows a parking study to reduce the amount of parking required, and the goal here is to reduce the amount of impervious area on a commercial site if it's not truly required. We have something that requires wetland buffers. This is a pretty significant change here because it's a 50-foot buffer instead of a 30-foot buffer, and it does apply to non-jurisdictional wetlands as well. Again, this is copying what was done in District 37 and 8. Some changes about the density of mobile home parks, and then the minimum zoning for a gas station. Commercial building facade requirements if they're visible from the road. The impervious surface ratio for B4 developments, or I'm sorry, B3 and B4 developments. It's really just a very small reduction from 0.7 to 0.6. Here are the biggest changes, and this is very similar to what was done in District 37 and 38, and essentially what those districts did is they said, we're going to avoid this kind of random sprawl zoning that can occur over time as, you know, these quasi-judicial bodies, that's the Planning Commission, the County Commission, when they approve these, they review and approve these cases. We're going to identify major activity nodes, and we're going to say certain zonings can only be requested within a proximity to those activity nodes. And that's what this language says. They still, all that means is that they can be requested there. They still have to go through the full zoning analysis. So it's an application trigger. It's not an approval trigger. So just because they fall in one of these zones doesn't mean they're guaranteed to get rezoned to that category. So I'm going to go through several maps here to show what those look like within this district. So you see the red arrow, that's the first intersection. It's the intersection of US 98 and Main Street in Alberta. And now, that's not even in our district, but it still creates the center of the node that we would look at this. The District 22, which is kind of that tan color there. But you can see there's a 1 mile radius for certain types of RTF6, RSF6, RTF4, that would also apply to B3. And then the blue circle is a 0.75 miles, which would be for RMF6 and B4. So you could only request those within there. Once you get outside of those circles, you can't request any of those items listed in this chart. Going to the intersection of US 98 and County Road 95, much smaller circles, but you can request some of these within a 1/4 mile of this intersection. Note that there's no HDR permitted to be requested there. An even smaller circle here, this is down to 0.1 miles along at the intersection of US 98 and County Road 91. This would allow B3 to be permitted within 0.1 miles, and none of those other categories would be permitted. And then this final intersection, which is the intersection of US 98 and the coastline, this has different radiuses for those different things that would be allowed. And again, the color scheme on there is just the different radius measurement, 1 mile, 0.7 mile, half mile, et cetera. All right, what we have on here are a bunch of pink dots that represent those who signed petitions. And I will make a note that I want to make sure we've gone back and included both petitions in this. We may have just included one in collecting these pink dots. So there could be some more that get added. But one thing we did notice is that there were only 2 pink dots in County Road 32. So those are registered voters or individuals who stated that they lived in that area and signed the petition. And so we're concerned that maybe that's not enough of a representation for Planning District 32 to move forward with these proposals. And you heard from those who are advocating for this that they are also concerned and want to make sure that there is indeed that representation for 32, so would agree polling 32 from the proposal. So staff's recommendation is to recommend the following to the Baldwin County Commission. Adopt a resolution which approves the amendments to the Baldwin County zoning ordinance related to planning districts 4, 22, 29, and 33, and then include in that motion to adopt a resolution which approves the amendments to Baldwin County zoning ordinance related to Planning District 32, subject to the showing of additional support from the residents of Planning District 32. And it's no big deal if they can't come up with that showing by the April meeting where this would likely be heard by the County Commission. No big deal. They could come back at some later time and pursue this. And that's all that I have, Commission.
Okay. All right. We'll open up at this time any comments or questions for Matthew.
Matthew, can you go back a slide to the map with the nodes? You know, in some of these areas, we have some large lots still. How do we handle an application that comes in if it, say, straddles the 1 mile node boundary? If a corner of a property is within, but the majority of the property is outside of that node, what's the mechanism? Would we still consider that, or?
So great question. Notice the last paragraph in red under the table for item G. It says, when a parcel intersects the distance boundary specified above, only the parcel area beyond 500 feet from such boundary shall be permitted for the proposed zoning.
So we could have a split zoning on a property then?
That's right.
Okay.
That's correct.
Matthew, I didn't ask this in a work session, but back on the first 2 items on landscape buffers, it references buffers being planted, and it just in general says overstory trees, understory trees. My question is there specifics outlined elsewhere? That seems a little vague to me.
Was this regarding the native species language? Or in the...
I'm looking at the first 2 items,
okay.
A and B. It just said buffer shall be planted with native overstory trees, understory shrubs, and I'm trying to find out who makes the determination that there's enough, or is there another zoning regulation that they must defer to get the specifics?
So great question. For A, which is a landscape buffer along major roads for major projects, that is something that we'll see on CSPs later today, and essentially y'all make that decision. We look at it, and for the one along the road in most of the county, it's just an aesthetic one, so we'll make sure there's a mixture. And then if y'all feel like there's not enough, that's something you can relay to the applicant and potentially table it and ask them to reconsider that. For the next item, which is one which is intended to not just be an aesthetic buffer, but to create a full visual barrier, we're going to look and make sure that those proposed trees essentially fill the gaps. So that way it'll create a full screen to the property between the shrubs, understory trees, and overstory trees. And then again, you'll get a chance to view that and decide whether or not you think it's sufficient.
Okay. So we make the decision.
That's
Thank
right.
you.
Will y'all as staff kind of convey to us whether what they've demonstrated on these site plans are native or non-native?
Yes, when there aren't, this will be the fourth group. Prior to this, there's only 3 districts that have that native requirement. So you haven't seen a lot of those yet. But moving forward, when one comes and it's in one of these districts, the staff goes and looks at the local provisions. They'll note this one, and then they'll make sure they're all native species, and then they'll note that ideally on the side. We try and show here's what the threshold is, and have they achieved that threshold, and that's something that we should know.
You know, honestly, I think a good applicant will help y'all in delineating that. I mean, working with a landscape architect, horticulturalist, landscape designers, they should be able to help advise y'all too before it even comes to us. So.
That's right. Great questions.
Okay, any other questions for staff? Okay. All right. Ms. Tracy or David, one of you want to speak for your group? Not that I'm eliminating any of you, but if you've got a spokesperson that's going to represent you, I'll let you come on up and speak at this time.
Do we need to do the presentation?
I wouldn't do the presentation again unless staff needs. I think we've seen it. I'm not sure that we need to.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to y'all for your volunteer service and giving up of your valuable time for our county. We greatly appreciate it. One of the slides, Matthew, that you put up there had the signature, the little dots where everybody had inputted. We submitted November 9th, 289 signatures, followed by another 200 signatures, and that's hard to believe. That's 489 signatures right there. So I'm not sure, because it just caught my eye when you threw it up there the last time. There's definitely more. We agree with the recommendation to drop District 32 out of it because we do not feel they were adequately represented in that. The purpose of these text amendments is we feel like this would be more reflective of our community and more representative of the Baldwin County vision for future growth. Overwhelmingly, in these planning districts that we've identified, the large majority of these parcels are greater than 1 acre by a long shot. So that's why we think the inclusion of going to RSF2, which allows RSF1, which is less than 1 acre. There's currently 3 developments going on in this area, all greater than 3 acres. And unless y'all have any questions for us, that's all we have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Mr. Tracy, remind me of one more thing.
Okay.
And Mr. Chairman, we concur with the rural development of subdivisions, smaller the subdivisions. We concur that sidewalks should not be a requirement of those areas other than inside the circle nodes that are identified on the maps.
Okay. All right, did I have anyone else signed up or did not sign up? Because I already have, that was it. Does anybody else wish to speak to this? Okay. All right, so from our work session, I want to be sure that we don't lose sight of this. promised Ms. Campbell we would not. And one of their requests was that we need to contemplate was whether to add RSF2 in our consideration under G. If you look at the second paragraph of G where it says an RSF3, 4, and list those out, rezoning applications may only be submitted for parcels within the radial distances. They wanted to add RSF2, which Matthew gave the county's position, staff's position on that. So either we need to make a decision on whether we're going to include that or make that part of the recommendation or leave it out per staff's. So the best way to do this, in my opinion, you have the staff's recommendations here, unless there's something you want to change based on what we heard from Mr. Williams, Ms. Gamble, then we need to, you need to state that in your motion. And this will be a recommendation to the county commission. So first off, does anybody have any other questions for Matthew? Any comments? Then I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we recommend approval for these proposed text amendments for planning districts 4, 20, 22, 29, and 32.
33.
With 33, with.
All right, you're going to go with as per staff's, submitted by staff?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so Mr. Mullock's made a motion that we recommend to the county commission that we approve the recommendations as submitted by staff. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Mullock, can we add to that motion sidewalk?
Well, I think we need a second first.
And I think that's a very valid addition to help manage the cost, and the cost is related to development.
With the, and I'll add to the motion, with sidewalks only be recommended within the radial areas.
You good with that, Mr. Brown?
Yes, sir.
All right. So I have a second on that motion.
Second.
All right, Mr. Booyer, second the motion. Any question or comments on the motion? So obviously, if you didn't hear what you were hoping to get, obviously this is a recommendation of the county commission. You'll still be able to make a pitch, discussion with them also. All right. I think I asked this. If there are no question or comments, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that motion is approved. No, I think it's fine. All right, we have a little administrative item to take care of. Ms. Mitchell, you going to tell us about that one? I think it's pretty straightforward, but
Yes, it is. We're just
change in our schedule.
requesting, that the pre-apps, this is where they come in for major developments to discuss what they want to do before they submit an application. We want to change it to the second Tuesday rather than the second Thursday, just to better fit with some other internal and county meetings that we have, recurring meetings.
Okay, so this doesn't really affect our meetings. It just affects the submittal dates that you got shown there.
Exactly.
All right, I'd entertain a motion that these changes be approved.
Move its approval.
Mr. Boogers made a motion to be approved. A second?
Second.
Vice Bias is second the motion. Any question or comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, great. We'll go to our subdivision cases now. Our first item is we'll open public hearing for case number SPP 22-24 Bienville Landing.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to recuse myself from this case.
All right, so Mr. Bias is going to recuse him. Does anybody else need to declare any prior communication on this that cause them to recuse themselves? All right. Ms. Booth, you need to explain something on this one as to why we're seeing this one again, I guess.
Yes, sir. So staff presented this case during the February 2nd, 2023 PC meeting, Planning Commission meeting. Upon presentation, the Baldwin County Planning and Zoning Commission heard comments during the public hearing, voted, and approved the preliminary plat for Bienville Landing. A few days after the meeting, a citizen reached out to the planning director in reference to an error on the public notice in the absence of one of the parcel ID numbers, incorrect numbers of acreage, as well as one adjacent property owner had not been duly notified. Planning and zoning staff corrected the notice and sent the updated notice to all adjacent property owners. Planning and zoning staff received a returned undeliverable mail for the omitted adjacent property owner on February 17th, 2023, and which you'll see on the next slide. Planning and zoning staff hand-delivered the updated notice to the adjacent property owner, which is Herbert Steyer and Sons Incorporated, on February 17, 2023. Planning and zoning staff has satisfied all requirements of the public notice to adjacent property owners and stands with the original recommendation of approval. Additionally, the Baldwin County Board of Education was notified of the proposed development but has not responded to any comments. So this is a copy of the certified mail that was sent and returned to us. So everything here is nothing has changed since the previous presentation, but I did want to go in here and show some slides that shows the drainage existing and the proposed drainage. So these are your basins. There's 3 basins that are existing, currently existing. These are the proposed basins. These are locations of the ponds. Pond 1A and 1B is going to be located in Basin 1. Pond 2 will be located in Basin 2, and Pond 3 will be, excuse me, there's a typo there, but Pond 3 will be located in Basin 3. So this is Pond 1. In the post conditions, there will be 2 detention ponds mitigating the additional runoff for Basin 1. The ditch will be constructed within the subject property along the western edge of Pond 1A to ensure that the existing drainage flow of the western property is routed to the existing basin outfall, therefore creating no adverse impact to the existing flow paths of adjacent properties. Below, you will see the pre and post calculations that shows a decrease in runoff for the 2, 5, 10, 25, 50, and 100-year storm events. And if you'll notice at 25-year, that's a significant reduction. Basin 2, the stormwater generally flows south and north into the existing ditch and then west. 1 detention pond will be constructed in this basin to mitigate the additional flows. The existing drainage ditch running through this basin will be reconstructed outside of the pond area. There's an appendix in the drainage calculations that's in the public folder if anybody would like to look at that for the cross sections. The existing stormwater generated from the northern property will continue to flow through the drainage ditch and ultimately to the west, therefore creating no adverse impact to existing flow paths of adjacent properties. The detention pond will also discharge the rerouted ditch at below pre-flow development rates. There you can see where the proposed pond is going to be located and your pre and post calculation rates. And again, look at the 25-year event where there is a reduction in stormwater runoff. Basin 3, the stormwater flows generally northeast to the roadside ditch and an existing 6-inch culvert draining east under Bonneview Road. The property north of Basin 3 generally drains east to the existing drainage ditch located along Bonneview Road. Basin 3 will have 1 detention pond to mitigate the additional runoff created by the development. The existing drainage area north of Basin 3 will be unaltered and allowed to flow to the existing drainage ditch, therefore causing no impact to existing flow paths of the adjacent properties. The detention pond will discharge at or below the pre-developed rates. There you have the location of Pond 3. And if you'll notice that there are several more common areas, but not all of them have ponds located in them. Everywhere there is a pond that's located, it's going to be identified as a common area. There's your pre and post calculations. And again, 25-year event is still a reduction in stormwater runoff. So, as I stated previously, staff does not have any additional comments. Nothing has changed since the original submittal, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay. Any questions for staff? All right. If not, at this time, then I'll call up those that have signed up. Mr. David DeShire, are you the representative for the applicant?
Yes, sir. I can wait.
Okay. All right. So for those in opposition, I'll go ahead and start. Well, Harold Walters.
It's my understanding from what I just heard, you've already approved it.
No, ma'am. No, sir.
If you would make your way.
If you have any comments, you can cover. This hasn't been approved. I mean, that's what we're here tonight to make a decision on.
All right, I'm Harold Walton. I've got 12 acres.
Yeah.
12 acres on the south side of it, across County Road 10. And all the runoff, a good portion of the runoff from that property has run down the east side of my property over the years. And at times, the water has gone over County Road 10. And, you know, I've seen several cars hydroplane go off into the ditch, whatever. I just ask that y'all take a good, long, hard look at their proposed retainment system and make sure it is adequate. You know, my family's been there right at 100 years, and I don't want to be the one who gets flooded out.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
Have a good evening.
Narissa Nelson. That'd be fine. Donna Davis.
Good evening. I think I spoke last time, and I have brought some pictures, if Mary doesn't mind putting them up, talking about the flooding, and I know that I had spoken, I don't know, with the engineer earlier. This is Bondview Road going south towards where the Bienville landing is. That's the drainage ditch on both sides of Bondview. As you can tell, it's really big, it's really large. It overfloods 75 to 80% of the time. It doesn't hold the water. And you can see all the debris, it'll clog up, and the debris will drain down. If you and this is actually our property where it's drained through our property. You can see our fence is leaned. Okay, wait, go back to the last one. The one before, I'm sorry.
That one?
No, that's the ditch. Oh, this is the little holding pond that D.R. Horton put in their previous subdivision, one of the little ones that is on the corner. It'll drain directly into the same drainage ditch that goes down the side of the highway. And this little one on the left corner here, there's a fence where our property is on the south side of the fence. That's the only drain, the smallest it is, the 3 foot, that runs directly through our property. See the little 3-foot ditch? That's where both sides of that highway that drain down Bondview cuts through our property and starts draining right there. See how little that ditch is? Okay, and then it proceeds to drain on through our property. As you can tell, the subdivision up there does not clean their property, and all the debris that floods through it under that little fence in the left-hand corner over there, down that also impacts our property. Let's see what the next one is, if you don't mind. Okay, this house directly behind it, that's the same little drainage ditch in the top 2 sections up there where it's clogged from drainage from the ditch and the subdivision behind us with the 300 houses. It all drains through this little ditch here. You're talking thousands of gallons of water. Okay, and it'll go, this little one on the bottom left is our drainage culvert. We had to put in ourselves. It wasn't put in by the city of the Corps of Engineers, it's ours. It'll go under there. And my son's house gets flooded up to his back porch from this little bit here because it doesn't drain rapidly. And he's up from this little 3-foot drainage from Bondview on both sides. Okay, can I see the next one, please? This is my front yard. This is where it drains from that little 3-foot ditch directly into it. If you see the 2 tree lines here, in the middle of that tree line is the drainage ditch, where all this water is draining from 10, 12, Bondview, where Mr. Walter said, across from his street down to our property. This is the middle of our property. The drainage ditch for all this water, as of right now, is in between those 2 trees, and it is 5 foot deep. We have dug it that deep ourselves to get it through our property. The driveway, as you see with the pylons there, that's ours, we had to put in. It gets washed out. My husband has at times parked in the neighbor's yard to walk through this 2 foot of water to get to work. And that over there, the top right left-hand corner, goes directly across our driveway into my father-in-law's property. There's another driveway where that existing tree line is. The water drains down from the the trailer park, to the east. And it all meets right there in our front yard. The long driveway, as you see going south, is the main entrance and exit to our property. It's under 2 foot of water. And it's crossing 10 where Mr. Walter says. It crosses 10. Can I see another one, please? That's my front yard, by the way, that pole. That's my front yard. No, one more, maybe, okay. This one down here, this is the one we were down here in the left. That's where the water exits across County Road 10. That little drainage right there, maybe 4 feet wide, maybe, I'm not sure. And then it exits through the small culvert across into Bon Secours watershed. It's not going anywhere until Bon Secours River decides it's leaving our property, and our property sits under that water till it drains. This is just debris that comes up on the property. You can tell where the water has leaned our fence over. We have to set it back up to keep the cows in. And it's just a lot of, this little corner here is where our power for our internet and our phone is. It gets underwater. We can't use it. The water settles. This is just what I'm telling you, the drainage. And I know they're telling you they adequately have enough water holding ponds, retention ponds. Well, so did the 300 houses behind us. It didn't help. We're still underwater. So until they improve the drainage, and they can prove to me or anybody in our surrounding houses that this water is going to be adequate doesn't work for us. It works for them, but it doesn't work for us, because it will overflow and come onto us, like Mr. Walter said, onto his property, to Mr. Ballard's property. And as you can tell, it's sitting in the front yard. There are 5 houses in the way of that flooding coming out this way. And we just need the ditches to go all the way down. They stop and drain through that little culvert through our property. And now, as I understand, there's going to be a retaining pond or holding pond, whatever, on number 3 there. That's directly across from where the 2 large drainage ditches on Bondview collect and go through our property. So if it doesn't hold, or if they drain any more into that, that's thousands of gallons of more water coming across. And I don't think she has an aerial view of our property where it shows. That's 30 acres you're talking that ends up under the water. And it's at our front door. So something's got to be more than adequate. Adequate is not going to work, because they said that when they have the 4 or 5 ponds behind us. Still didn't work. Still didn't work. And it looks good on paper, because the 2 holding ponds that they're going to put in are on watershed, which I know it's not legally cleared water, but you can't change the fact that it's still a wetland. And you're going to hit water just like they did on 65 last week. They hit a water main. They now have almost 6 foot of water in the subdivision they're building down there. And it's going to stay. Where's the water going to go that's going to bleed off when you've already got water in the retaining ponds? But we've discussed the infrastructure and the traffic flow. I don't know if you're aware, but there are no County Road 10. The lady that was here last week was suggesting that 200 or more cars that'll come out of this subdivision onto small County Road 10. We have no speed breakers. We have 2 stop signs. We have no speed limits on our road. If you've ever been down there, there's no speed limit signs posted on that road. They like to motorcycle race on Saturday and Sunday nights up and down that road. The cars don't stop flying over County Road 10, although there's 2 bus stops. 2 bus stops. They don't stop. And you're going to put 200 more cars on this road. Something needs to be, you've got to have some more research on here. It's just not going to work. And I know that you're aware that there are surface water laws as well as impeding laws, and as you can tell, those are already being broke. The county and the state both have those. They're being broke. It's already, the surface water is increasing yearly, and it may take 25 years or 10 years to get below, but what do we do in the meantime? The surface water flow has been altered and will be altered again. If you allow this to be put in, it will be altered again. And it is impeding on our livelihood, our homes, our survival of staying there. You could knock out the 10 homes in that little square area in no time within the next year or so, if something isn't done to fix this now. And just hold off until we can find a way, because I don't believe it's going to happen. It hasn't happened as of yet with what they put in. D.R. Horton promised it won't happen. It happened.
You need to wrap it up. I got 3 minutes.
Well, there wasn't anybody
I let you
behind
way
me.
over 3 minutes. So
There wasn't anybody behind me, so I just figured I'd keep going. But what I'm asking is that you just table it for a while till we can figure out something else, because I'm just not, I've lived here my entire life, and that's what's happening to us. And as you'll hear from the other ones, it's happening to them as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Nelson? I will encourage others that have signed up to speak, not just to be repetitive. If you just agree, just say that you agree with the previous comments. We understand clearly from the pictures there was a drainage, but we don't need to be repeating it over and over. Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Steve Ballard. I live adjacent to the property where the proposal is. I'll echo everything Ms. Davis said, everything Mr. Walter says. I'm currently still in a legal battle with insurance because I almost flooded. I had a 0.5 inches until I flooded during Sally, and that was with the...
Hang on a second. Ms. Davis, a little distraction. Go ahead.
And that was post the 300 homes that are in the property off of County Road 16 behind us that Ms. Davis referred to a couple times. So if another subdivision goes in right next to us, I can pretty much guarantee that water's going to come up. It'll flood my house again. We just did a $300 and some odd thousand rebuild of our home out of pocket, which those things happen. But if we could put some more studies into this word adequate, because like Ms. Davis says, it's not adequate for me to go back home tonight and say that the county didn't put in measures to protect those that are currently living there from a potential flood area. So if you build, I'm all about growth and financial growth as well, but at what cost? So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Nelson, you want to speak now? Okay.
Narisa Nelson. I have a question, first of all. Is the school board's non-verbalization as to the effect that this subdivision is going to have on the school system a box that is not checked?
I'm happy to address that. We have talked to the school system verbally. They've assured us that they do look at every single one of these in detail when we send them to them, and the fact their silence, their response of silence is then indicating that they understand this is coming and likely to be approved. It is unfortunately one way or the other, no matter what they said, it is not a box that can or cannot be, it's not required in the subregs right now, even if they said it wasn't sufficient.
Okay.
My next question is I'm assuming that the traffic study on County Road 10 was the actual traffic study in front of this subdivision annexed to County Road 10, not the main County Road 10? Is that correct?
I will defer that question to the engineer. He can answer that shortly.
Who?
The engineer for the project, he can answer that question shortly.
Okay. Because it's already taken me 20 minutes to get on the main County Road 10, which runs east and west and then turns north and south at the curve, Miller's Curve. And I can't get through 59 now. I have to take a back road, which of course everybody else is taking, and I was wondering how many more cars I can count on in that same traffic pattern in the mornings. Is it my understanding that the lots that are in this proposed subdivision are going to be slanted toward the inside of the subdivision, toward their roads?
That's another question he can answer for you.
Okay.
You're talking about the slope of the property?
Correct. I want to make sure what the slope of the property is, and I also want to know how high they can build these lots up. You know, because the one on, and the reason I ask that is the one that, it's on County Road 12 and 65, they hit water in their retaining pond, so now the retaining pond's filling up. So now they have decided to build their lots up another 3 feet. And, you know, we know what happens when that happens is it's going to flood the adjoining areas even more. So I'm trying to figure out how much the lots can be built up, how much fill can be brought in. Is that another question for the engineer? Yeah, okay. And is it my understanding, I think staff can answer this, is if a developer checks all the subdivision boxes, that your hands are tied and you have to approve a preliminary plat?
I think the chairman can answer that one.
In general, that is correct. We have recently taken the opposite position on that and been told otherwise, so by the courts. So the answer to the question is if they check the boxes, and by that we mean that our county staff who checks the drainage proposal, the traffic, and if it meets the county requirements, those are checking the boxes, and they meet lot sizes and setbacks and so forth, then yes, our hands are somewhat tied.
Okay, so the only way to protect this area or any other area that's unzoned is to zone or incorporate and then get their own zoning?
Yes, that would help.
Okay. That's all I have.
Okay.
Oh, I take that. So in other words, these public hearings for these the subdivisions where all the boxes have been checked are just basically useless?
Not necessarily. The point of the public hearing is twofold. It's to educate you on, number one, that they are proposing things to address some of the concerns that you may have. I mean, we hold public hearings not just necessarily take and weigh out the comments and say, well, there are more comments against it. It's more of an education thing. Number one, if our staff has in fact checked to make sure that the engineer has supplied the information that addresses, we need to let you know that those items have been addressed.
Okay.
At the same time, we need to hear if there are things that seem to be greater than what we would normally see, so that we can ask our staff if in fact were they aware of those things. So you may bring something to us, and that gives us the opportunity to ask staff. So it's not a cut and dry. It's an opportunity for us to hear everything.
I want to reiterate the fact that these areas that are unzoned, the only protection they can do for themselves, especially regarding density of subdivisions, is to get some kind of zoning.
Yes.
Whether it be through the county or to incorporate and do their own zoning.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. We kind of got out of, I'm going to make sure I get everybody. Kenny Hallman? Hallman?
Thanks. I'm Kenny Hallman, adjacent property owner. My biggest concern, is there any way, I know the box is unchecked about the school system, and it concerns me knowing that we've already sent a lot of kids from Bon Secure to the Magnolia Elementary, and I mean a lot of kids that we couldn't handle at Swift. Is there any way you guys could wait until that box is checked to approve this thing, to really make sure that at least at the elementary level, I mean, I know Foley's a big place, but these elementary schools, I'm not sure they have room for that kind of growth. I'm not sure the average children, you know, what, 2 people per household or something? If that's 130 houses, that's 260 kids that Magnolia Springs Elementary could likely have to take on? I'm not sure that they could handle that, as well as all their other concerns. But, you know, if like she was saying, if we're not happy with things, could y'all at least check into that and make them check that box off? Because if anything matters more than our kids, you know, that's a really big concern to me.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mary Whitehead? Nope, never mind. Your next case. Hang on to that one. Did I miss anybody on the B anvil? Okay. I'm going to close the public hearing and then allow the Planning Commission to ask any questions. Staff, you have any additional comments?
Mr. Chairman, I just want to make sure, I feel like we might be missing someone who signed up. We had Harold Walters, Narissa Nelson, Donna Davis, Kenny Hellman, Stephen Ballard, Kenny Helm. Oh, Kenny Hellman's on here twice.
Kenny was on twice.
Okay, I feel better.
There weren't 2 Kennys, are there? Or Junior or something I missed?
No, it is just me, but also, will the engineer be speaking before y'all close?
Yeah. Yeah, we're going to talk about that. Mary, did you have anything else? Because I'm going to bring the engineer up, or the representative up, he can see if he can address some of the
At this
concerns.
time, I do not have any other comments.
Okay. You can come up here.
Hey, good evening. Good to see y'all again. I wrote down some notes here. I'll try to make sure I answer everything, but if I miss something, just bring it up. The gentleman that first spoke, I didn't catch his name, I'm sorry, but I know he's on the south side of the project, which is the area of the project that receives the most stormwater from this site. So we gave special attention to that area to make sure that we were going to reduce the amount of stormwater headed in his direction, because it's the largest basin. Out of 44 acres, around 33 acres of this project goes to the south, toward 10. And just percentage of reduction, we're right at 60% reduction compared to what's there today as what would be post with, and we're doing that with our detention ponds and other means. Ms. Davis, who was showing you the pictures, she spoke about the roadside ditch. Our acreage that goes in her direction toward Bondview is 4 acres of the 44 acres. So this project really doesn't contribute that much to her basin. Regardless, we're making a reduction of what we're sending from pre and post toward that direction. Obviously trying to obviously meet the regulations and improve any existing conditions that are already an issue. Let's see, she made made mention of discussion of trying to extend the ditch southward along Bondview. That actually might help their condition, but that would be sending water from one basin to another, and it would become someone else's issue. Discussion around the traffic, in terms of speeding, I think that's a question and something that can be addressed by law enforcement, not our project, or not our issue that we can handle for this project. Mr. Ballard just talked about the flooding. Also, I believe he's in the same basin. I think he's to the east. I may be wrong, but same scenario as Ms. Davis. We're making reductions, and this project only has 3 to 4 acres of the 44 that drains into their basin. To Ms. Nelson's comments, the traffic study is available. I'm sure it's public record, can be reviewed. Both County Road 10, both of the County Road 10s were evaluated and shown. That study and report is available in the traffic study. They made recommendations based on their counts and the areas they studied. We incorporated their recommendations, and so that's what's in our proposal. Lot grading, one way that we've helped keep the water off of Bondview is exactly what she mentioned, which was drain the lots from the back to the front. So along Bondview, where there's current drainage that goes out to Bondview, that grading is actually going to be kicked back inside the subdivision, collected in the storm drain, routed to the detention pond, where, like I said first, it's reduced by 60% before it leaves our site. The fill amount that she asked, is there amount that is a maximum amount of fill that we can bring to raise up the lots? Obviously, we have an interest of keeping that amount down for cost. So it's only going to be in the amount that we could help promote our drainage to have positive drainage to our ponds, collected and then discharged southward in the southward basin. The school system question that Mr. Holland brought up, we're actually in the Magnolia Springs district. This property is zoned for the school district of Magnolia Springs. So the school board sets those lines, based on their decisions of future expansion, what they currently have and needs, and how they can be able to address and serve those areas. So I don't know that there's any, obviously that we haven't heard any concern from them. So I don't know that there's anything to address there. Are there any other questions that I didn't catch or questions that y'all may have?
Okay, any questions? By the Planning Commission? Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Mitchell, do you have anything you need to add based on anything you saw tonight concern you? You feel comfortable with what you've seen? And please understand, everybody, we're at a point where we're approving a layout, and they've given us enough information to Mr. Mitchell, from our county engineer, to look at to determine if their plan is appropriate. They still have to, if this were approved, they still must submit complete engineering plans, which will be looked again by staff in very particular manner, calculations, everything. So this was only a first step. They haven't really submitted final construction plans yet. Those will come. But do you need to add anything?
No, I think you just covered everything that I would say. I mean, basically they would submit a full-on detailed design with all the grading, all the drainage and how that gets to the ponds and exits the site. So that would go under another review before we issue a subdivision permit.
And let me just ask this on their behalf, has the county looked at any of the drainage? Because it sounds like there's some, not just necessarily, I think what I'm hearing that this site is contributing a small amount to one of the neighbors that had pictures that showed a fairly severe problem. But obviously that's coming from, have you guys looked at any of that out there? I know there are times we look at areas where they get some significant drainage.
I don't know if we have, but I can talk to our maintenance personnel and find out and take a look at that.
I mean, pictures I saw were fairly significant. I wouldn't say that that was a small item. It was fairly large. But I think what I'm hearing, they're concerned about what this is going to contribute to it. I know you look at this specific project to make sure that this project doesn't add any more. In this case, what they're saying is going to actually decrease it slightly, but doesn't address the problem that seems to really be the problem.
That's right. And usually, I mean, if we have those kind of concerns and complaints, we have to look at it and see what kind of storm event it was. You know, was it a hurricane? Is that a condition that's not normal? Or if it's something that happens every so often, that's a different story. So we would take that into consideration.
Is there another avenue that the citizens can go to in the county to help alleviate some of these drainage issues?
So if somebody has a concern or a complaint, they can reach out to our highway department. We are broken up into 3 areas. Area 100, 200, 300 is basically the northern part of the county, the middle part, and the southern part. And those individual offices can go investigate those type of complaints because they have the knowledge of the area and how things drain. So there is that avenue to reach out to those specific offices to raise those concerns.
Yeah, because it seems like what we're looking at is this specific project, but there's more issues that the citizens need to address beyond this project.
That is correct. I mean, there are other avenues beyond this meeting tonight that can be addressed and handled through our highway department.
Thank you.
I have one more comment for Mr. Mitchell. Is that something, if there are no, I'm assuming County Road 10 does have a speed limit. You know, if there are no signs on there, that might be something through this process we might help them get some posted speed limits there.
Yes, and I have a note for that. We'll investigate, see if there is no signage, and we'll install those as need be.
Okay. Ms. Booth, do you have anything else to add?
No, sir.
Any questions for any of our staff?
Mr. Chairman, I would actually like to ask a question of Ms. Davis. There were some photos she displayed that showed substantial flooding. Do you happen to know the date that those photos were taken? That can really be helpful in understanding what was taking place in that situation. I just noticed that those photos, I was looking back at them, look quite a bit older than the other 12 that you showed. And so I wondered if they were perhaps from 2014. Do you have those with you tonight? Okay, well, in a moment when this is done, maybe I can take an additional look at them real quickly.
Okay. All right. I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion we approve the preliminary plat.
Okay, Mr. Davis made a motion, we approve the plat. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Mr. Mullick has seconded the motion. Any questions, comments on the motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. I'll bring Mr. Bias back to the table. All right. I am going to recuse myself on this one. I have, before retirement, our firm had a little work on this site with this applicant, so I think in best interest in talking with council, I'm going to recuse myself from this and let Mr. Bias handle that one.
All right, the next case we're going to hear is PUD 22-19, Clear Creek RV Park. I will ask if anyone on the commission has any prior communication on this case. All right, Ms. Mitchell.
All right, thank you. And this is on page 113 of the agenda. This is a 264-unit RV park. And this is located it's actually in Foley's planning jurisdiction, but they do not review RV parks and mobile home parks, things like that, so we're reviewing it instead. So it's in Plan District 34. It is unzoned. All of the interior roads will remain private, and I'll discuss traffic and drainage in a minute. So it's a rather long development, so it's actually spread out on 2 different sheets, sheet 1, sheet 2, and then here's kind of a composite of the 2. And I'll zoom in a moment on some of these areas with amenities to show those. This is its location, and you can see it's directly south of Barron Field, and so there's actually a note that's added to the plat in regard to that, and I'll show you that in a minute. Here are the utility letters. This one does have water, sewer, and a broadband commitment. And I wanted to show you this. This is a new notification system we're using for the Board of Education. And so because we've been sending them, so what I'm doing now, we're sending a more detailed report. It has the name, number of units, location, and I'm using the Baldwin County Board of Education website. If you click on the location, it will actually bring up this pop-up that shows which schools are in that, like where this is, which specific schools this area would be assigned to. And so this is a screenshot of what I sent to them. And we have not heard from them. I've spoken actually with one of the Board of Education people in person, and they're choosing not to respond. So just so you know, we are sending them, and they're receiving them, and we're not hearing. So this is, like I said, a more detailed notification process we're doing now based on citizen concerns and your feedback. Fire protection, Brad Hall in Foley did approve this plan, and for some reason there's a block of text here that disappeared. Oh, sorry, because it's an animation. Here we go. He did request that they have a boulevard type entrance to facilitate emergency vehicles, so they did add that. They did a fire flow test, and it does meet ISO requirements, so those all check out. It's proposed to be developed in 2 phases. So the white areas, that's all part of phase 1. The orange is part of phase 2. So you can see all the, and it's oriented with north to the left there. So the western half will be developed first, and the eastern half in phase 2. And here is a close-up of some of the amenity areas. So you can see they have some structures associated with this one, a pool area, some tennis courts, batting cages. And then here's a central area with the amenities, bathhouse, splash pad. And then here's a close-up of the parking. And then here's the airfield note. And this is just to make sure that people are aware that they are adjacent to an airfield, that there will be noise. There's no limit on the time that will be operating. So it's just like there's a warning on the plat itself. There are wetlands on the property. They're on the southern end, and those all are shown with a 30-foot buffer and a natural buffer within that. The detention is also at the south, adjacent, like just to the north of the wetland area. And the proposed reduction in discharge will be, the reduction is about 50%. And here's some more details of the basins that are created within the park. And then there's the detention pond here. It's a dry pond that then overflows into the river and wetland area. Traffic study was done and approved, reviewed and approved, and they are required to put in some improvements along Dock McDuffie for phase 2. Now for phase 1, they have to widen Dock McDuffie. That's what our subdivision regulations. It has to be 24 feet wide for 300 feet in either direction of the entrance. But then the turn lanes will be added phase 2. So we are recommending approval, but the conditions are that widening of the road and the road improvements. These are the specific conditions for this park. And then the second page, these are the general conditions that apply to all PUDs. Some questions?
Thank you. A couple of questions I have looking at this. It wasn't, in our packet, it doesn't show this. I don't remember seeing it on the screen.
Yes, some of these were added later.
Does the detention pond happen in phase one? The full detention pond?
Yes, they have to do detention phase one, yes. So if I'll go, this is well, I guess I cut that part off. But yeah, all the drainage is part of phase one.
And all these lots are only accessed off of one entrance?
Yes.
There's no secondary egress?
Yes.
Do we have any sort of, is there a trigger in our regulations on the requirement of a secondary egress?
No, there's not, and, but Brad Hall does, that's why he requires that boulevard entrance. That's his way of accommodating, like,
Yeah.
in a sense, creating a second entrance.
So if there's something at one of those two drives, there's a secondary drive?
Right.
Maybe something we want to go back and look at in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions for staff?
I noticed that you referenced the school districts on here. Am I wrong that these would be temporary, that would necessitate no more than 4 months per 12-month period as locations, or is this a permanent subdivision of mobile homes as opposed to just come-and-go RV people?
This is an unzoned park, so the limitations aren't as strict as they are in zoned areas. So you're correct. You don't usually have as many children associated with an RV park as with a regular subdivision, but we still notify the Board of Education anytime there are over 50 sites or lots.
Any other questions for staff?
I have one, and it was, you referenced some jurisdictional wetlands. Were there any non-jurisdictional wetlands on this site?
No, there were not.
All right, we will open up the public hearing for this case. The first person I have signed up is Michael Whitehead.
Can I get a remote?
Yeah, we can take him up. Thank you, Buford.
I can wheel up there if you see the top.
No need, sir. I'm going to bring you this portable mic.
Thank you very much for the time. I want to make a short comment. This is an excellent facility, a great thing for doing this. This is the first time I've come to the zoning commission. We live in Foley, and we have land adjoining the southern part. We're right on Wolf Creek. We're at the bottom. If we were able to show the map, if you show the arrow there, you'll see what this looks like. It's actually on Longview Lane. If you're able to take the bottom of the rectangle, just take the very bottom left, and just bring it down right there. That's a hill that's running right down into Longview Lane, and right behind it, which does not show very well, is Wolf Creek. Now, Wolf Creek, for those of you who have lived along it, you know it can be a trickle or it can be a torrent. I married a local girl. I'm a retired Navy commander. We came back here to live, and I just happened to be a meteorologist and happened to be a disaster preparedness officer and an American Red Cross board director. All those things together over 23 years plus at time. When we have rain, how many times we had one comment about we had the Bienville area. You can have one day a downpour and you may get 15, 16 inches. I can count in the 3 years that we have been here, I have 2 occasions in a matter of 24 hours, we had 30 plus inches of rain. And that is in my rain gauge that works quite well. Where does that rain go? It comes right off of the Wolf Creek, comes right underneath, just to the north of Oa. It flows where the Sonny Callahan Bridge is. And you go down and you look into, if you actually are going down and you look to the east, you can't even see the creek. But you can see it when you've got 15 feet of water in it. And that 15 feet of water keeps coming down, and no one has cleaned that area in numerous years. And talking to some of our family that were long-term locals, someone in the county commission having someone come and help clear Wolf Creek area for the drainage, because when it floods out, it just floods out, and we had close to between where the creek is and where we had just the last heavy rain, it was within 15 feet of the house, and we are some 150 feet out in front of the house. All that comes in, and you can see, and there is from what Mother Nature has over time. The waterway used to come up, and you can see where there's a natural hill. That's where the water over years have come through from time to time and taken things out. But we haven't had those types of rains for 20-something years, until about the last 3 or 4 years. Then we just happened to have Hurricane Sally. Hurricane Sally sat right on top of our part of Greater Foley, right over that area there, and the water was tumultuous, just coming down the southern part of a north-south oriented Clear Creek that goes downhill. Even a retention pond, you put that much rain in a retention pond, especially if it happens to be dry, it's going to have hardened, it's going to be brickish, and it'll run right over that unless you've got some other ways to drain it out. And who is that going to impact? So the long and short is, I don't know what the highest peak is. It's nice to see there's a retention wall there, retention pond. I'd just like to know if there's been any surveys to account that, because you happen to also have a nice little runway there. If you want to talk about your little caveat, the Sound of Freedom. We have the Sound of Freedom, and we can tell you it normally starts at 8 o'clock. It goes on till about 9:30, because I used to brief those pilots over at Whiting Field. Here they come fly over here. And then they come out after staggered for lunch, and they come through between 12 and about 1 o'clock, 1:30, and you can count on it 3 days a week or 4 days a week. Sundays, they normally give you a break, but the local folks do it. So that's all I'm going to say, except that I'd like to know more about the survey. I'd like to know more about the retention pond. And I'm just thinking 264 units running north-south along north-south oriented Clear Creek, which runs into Wolf Creek, which runs into Wolf Bay. And I don't know if we have anybody representing Wolf Bay, but they probably ought to be here, because some of them, when they affluent from that particular and everywhere else up there, winds up going down into the Wolf Bay. Kind of one of our most precious things that we have in Baldwin County. So that's all I got to say. Thank you, gentlemen. And ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Whitehead. There's Mary Whitehead. Can we get you to come up here, or you can? Thank you.
I'm not going to repeat what he said. However, our concern is the drainage, because before Sally, we had no problems. And since Sally, we've had lots of water in that little area that's supposed to drain off all of the whole neighborhood. We have talked with, I don't know who's at Graham Creek, who has been talking to us about the cleanup of that area there, but the creek is the drainage for our whole neighborhood. And we had flooding from our neighborhood. We did not have it from the creek because it was on its way down to the creek. We're between the neighborhood and the creek. And so what we're concerned about is if it's already flooding, no matter what kind of buffer zone they have, what's going to compensate for that? I don't understand how that's going to work. I'm guessing that they're 15 feet of buffer zone. I don't know that that will do any help at all.
So you're to make sure we understand where you're talking about, your property is on the other side of Wolf Creek?
Correct. We're on the other side of Wolf Creek, but they're saying about 15 feet before.
Yeah, so there is a detention pond for this facility. All this facility will drain to that pond. And then there is a buffer between that pond and the wetlands that exist now. So and correct me if I'm wrong, Matthew or Sean, we require a certain setback from the existing jurisdictional wetlands.
Right, okay.
So this will be separated from that facility to collect that drainage for this side. And that was what, they just had the drainage calculations up there a second ago showing how that whole system would work.
Okay, and the other question we have is because the survey that they were using for the clearing after Sally the survey was done before Sally. So I'm just wondering if you have enough, if your information is current. Yeah.
Well, do we have a date on when the wetland delineation or any sort of, well, I guess if they're set back, if they're enacting the 15-foot buffer.
It would have been recent. This is what I have from the, well, I think this is all I have for the wetland report, so this one, but it's something that they just did for this project, so it's a recent delineation.
So it was done post-Sally? Okay. Any other questions?
No, I think I just wanted to make sure that you knew that all of us along that ridge, even though I don't think any of our neighbors are here, they all have had flooding from, since Sally.
Right.
Not just during Sally, but since Sally, all of that waterway there has changed so that we're all getting so much more water from the creek than we did before Sally.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item up is Don Rowe. Don, anything you want to add? Mr. Nettles, you can come with him if you like as the property owner.
Okay, Don Rowe with Rowe Engineering. Y'all got anything you want to ask me?
Any question for the engineer?
Are these intended to be short-term, long-term rentals, or are you going to sell the lots off?
Well, right now, we can't sell the lots off because of kind of a twerk in the zoning regulations, but ultimately, hopefully, we could. Right now, the county can't approve that, though. So all we're asking for right now is approval of the RV park, which would be rental units at this point. If something happens to the regulations such that it could be become a subdivision, or RV subdivision through the variance process through the county, then we would be back.
Don, if I'm reading the site plan correctly, you have sidewalks on kind of one side of each of the internal
One side
streets?
of all the roads.
And I see you have crossings at the north and south perpendicular streets.
Correct.
Was there any consideration ever given to any sort of internal circulation mid-block, where as pedestrians move through the space?
Well, I heard that during the work session, and we would be, this is the owner, Frank, we would be willing to go back and try to put some in.
Yeah, I mean, I think of somebody who's either on this far east or far west street, if they're trying to get to the, the amenities there in the middle where they don't have to walk all the way up, across, and then back down, so they're not walking more or less between as many.
So you're talking about sidewalk access across?
I mean, I think vehicular access would be great, to increase that as well, but certainly sidewalks would be beneficial.
Well, when you mentioned the vehicular access, after looking at this, and yes, I agree. I would like to go ahead and have where vehicles can go midway the park or right either in front or behind the splash pad as you see up there.
Yeah.
Sidewalks, I hadn't thought about it, really.
We got sidewalks, Frank.
I know, but I'm talking about between them.
Oh, yeah.
He was
Well, we put the road across there, we put the sidewalk beside it, just like with the rest of the
Okay.
roads, because it would have to be 28 feet anyway.
The roads would be a good deal.
So
What width roads do you have in there?
the right-of-way is 28 feet, the driving road is 24, and your sidewalk, which also functions, is additional 4 feet. So it's paved 28 feet wide.
Do you have the sidewalk right up against the back of curb or right against
Right.
the edge of pavement? Any other questions?
Where are the dumpsters going to be located? I know this comes up a lot when
Dumpsters
we're looking at RV
depicted-
site plans. We just want to make sure there's,
The dumpsters are on there.
I'm circling one right
There's
now with the
one there,
mouse.
I think there's one in the back.
Here's, where's this one? Can I use
On the
it?
next sheet.
okay.
All right, so yeah, here's one set, and then there's another set back here. So
Oh, it's
they've got-
back there, that angular,
Oh,
right
this
there.
one?
Yep.
Sorry, circling the wrong thing. So they do have them in the front and the rear.
Okay, thank you. So is
So
it two?
I think what we said was if you want to give us a holdover to work on those roads, we'd do that.
Is that 2 dumpsters for the whole facility?
Right.
Okay. Yeah, I guess one for each phase. So in that situation, you want to request a table, you want to table this case to look at that
Holdover.
circulation?
Holdover, yeah, if that's the right word.
Yep. What, 1 month, 2 months? What, I mean, do y'all have a preference?
We'll start out with 1 month, and if I think I need another one, I'll just ask for it.
Clarification, how long, can we do a table, can we do 2 consecutive tables, or should we look at doing something for 2?
So we prefer to table to a date specific because it lets the public know today when that's being, when this will be reconsidered. So we would like for you to choose either first Thursday in April or first Thursday in May.
May? May.
Okay. What do you say? May. Okay.
Anything else?
You'll just need to obviously vote on that.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Assuming that this is being done as an RV park currently, and as I look at this, as the vehicles would come in from the main, because there are only direct roads going through, once they pull in, when they're getting ready to leave, if there's more than one in an area, how do they turn around, if you will, to be able to head out, given that they have headed into the parking space without creating some traffic flow areas?
I'm not sure I understand the question. Those are two-way traffic roads.
Well, no, I understand the roads are two-way, but you bring in a 45-foot RV, you pull it in this way, and you're going to back it out this way. It's going to be very difficult to back it out.
Well, they're actually designed to back in, not pull in. These are not pull-throughs, they're back in. But,
They're all back in.
and they're angled lots, so they're real easy to back into compared to perpendicular lots. So I don't foresee a problem getting in and out.
Okay, it just doesn't, to me, if you back in, then you've got to back out, or you've got to drive out. But
Right.
the back in then becomes the problem in the way I'm thinking of it. Maybe I'm thinking of it improperly.
Well, you got to back in, because if you don't, all your hookups are on the wrong side of the trailer. It's designed to back in here.
So I actually motor home with most of the parks I go to, we back into. They're
No, I'm okay with backing in, but you've got a slanted, and you've only got one road, regardless of if it's 2 lanes or not, or two-way. But then when either, you're going to have to turn that RV around one way or the other, whether you drive in straight or you back in. And then you've got to, getting out then gets easier, but the getting in gets more difficult backing it in. And how do you deal with that with no real turnaround areas within the park?
They would have to pull out and actually go back, even through the park.
They would circle.
Come back through.
They would circle the block.
Which I've had to do many a time, yeah. If you have the streets that cross in the middle.
Yes.
The ones that are at the front will go out and go back up the middle, that way.
Yeah.
The ones that are in the back, past that street would have to go, I mean, there would be no reason for them to try to turn and go out the front of the same road.
Yep.
They would have to go out, back to the back, and back up. out.
Yeah.
Which I personally had to do many times.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. Good question.
I have one question that you might, or thought you might consider is, over the next month, couple months, is are there any landscape plantings in the front? I know we maybe don't require those, but if just something to, help us give some screening from Doc McDuffie Road.
Well, I'm sorry, we don't have any landscaping set up other than whatever Frank decides to put in now. I'm sure it's going to look nice, but it's not going to be screened.
Well,
like
anything that just helps give the people, let's just say our residents on Doc McDuffie, just some visual barrier from the street.
It will definitely be landscaped up front.
Okay.
We've thought about the bushes to separate the tennis courts from the highway, so there's some privacy to the tennis court with a gap, and then obviously come across the boulevard, same thing. And then there'll be some nice signage.
Very good.
Any other questions for the applicant? So what we have from them right now is a request to table this until the May meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I so move that we table it until the May Planning and Zoning meeting.
I'll second
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank y'all.
And I just want to make one comment for citizens. We have in the public folders the traffic reports, the wetland reports, all those things are in there. If you go to the Baldwin County Planning and Zoning website, you can find all those so you can see how old the reports are. Like I said, they're all things that are submitted for this application, but you can find all the details in there.
Are we reading that? I think so. Okay. Okay. This time we'll open the public hearing then now for case SC 22-55 Dewberry Farms. Does anybody need to declare any prior communications on this item? Ms. Mitchell?
All right, and this is on page 130 of the agenda. So this is a 5-lot subdivision, and it is located in Planning District 4. And this area is zoned. It's zoned rural. So the minimum lot size is 40,000 square feet. That would be a really large minimum lot size, and 125-foot width. The traffic study is not required due to the number of lots. There is a wetland report. And one thing I want to point out, if you were to look at this in the parcel viewer, the lot lines would not match what you see. That's because the applicants, I'm going to come back to this. The applicants have an exempt subdivision, and it has been recorded. This is the instrument number, but there's always a lag time. It takes a while for revenue to actually map it. So like I said, the parcel viewer will not match what you see, and so that's why I included this. Currently, the line goes here, but they moved it, so it is now more of a square lot. So there are 5 lots, all 8 acres. And they're off of Bertha Cleveland Road. Aerial. The drainage report has been reviewed and accepted by Highway, and there's no new infrastructure proposed, so there shouldn't be any changes to the existing drainage. There were some wetlands found in the wetland report, and so those have been delineated. There are 2 different pockets here, and they're shown with a 30-foot setback with a 15-foot natural buffer inside. Utilities provided. So we are recommending approval with no conditions and just the standard general condition to record it.
Okay. Any questions for staff? Okay, thank you, ma'am. I do not have anyone signed up for this. Is there someone that failed to sign up that wished to speak? Okay. I'll close the public hearing. One more chance. Any questions or comments on this one before? All right, then I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Mr. Tonsmeyer's made a motion to approve. Mr. Bias seconded the motion. Any questions or comments on the motion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we'll open public hearing now for case SC 23-2. I'm going to make sure, Popey subdivision. Does anybody need to declare any prior communication on this item? Okay, Ms. Booth?
This is on page 144 of your report there. This is for a 2-lot subdivision. It is located in Planning District 22. It is currently zoned rural agricultural. There are 9.75 acres divided into 2 lots. A traffic study is not required at this time due to lot count. There were no drainage improvements required due to no infrastructure. No new streets, utility providers. This is your preliminary plat layout. The lot number 1A is going to be a flag lot, and the lot 1B will have direct access to County Road 95. Lot 1A, this is previously recorded subdivision, which is Grandview subdivision. The existing lot, or the proposed lot 1A, is sharing a common drive with the other lot in Grandview. So lot 1B would have to get a new a new residential drive in the future, depending on whenever they decide to further develop that lot. So this is a close-up showing lot 1A and lot 2A. This is your site map, your vicinity map. Your drainage narrative indicates the drainage pattern will remain the same after the subdivision is created. There are no new roads nor impervious improvements slated to be built as part of this subdivision. The written drainage narrative has been reviewed and accepted by Baldwin County Highway Department. These are utility letters. The only required utility is power, which is shown here, the availability letter. The water will be well, and sewer will be on-site septic, and those are the notes that are on the plat. There are no wetlands on this property. During preliminary plat review and within jurisdiction authority, Baldwin County Highway Department has requested the site distance be reflected on the plat to ensure that site distance can be achieved for each lot prior to the final plat being recorded. The applicant has not shown the site distance as requested and may need to conduct additional field work to obtain that data to be reflected on the final plat prior to recording. Staff recommends preliminary plat approval, subject to the following conditions. Excuse me. Unless otherwise satisfied by Baldwin County Highway Department, site distance shall be shown on the final plat before recording. If the applicant cannot show the site distance can be achieved for all lots, the conditional approval will be rescinded within 30 days of the date of the preliminary plat approval, of same approval. Once the applicant has satisfied the request by Baldwin County Highway Department regarding the site distance, planning and zoning staff will issue administrative final plat approval, and then the final plat shall be circulated for signatures and recorded within 90 days of preliminary plat approval. And I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Mary, can you tell us the site distance? We don't normally see that on all cases, but what is the issue? Is it grade or is it growth on the right? What's the issue?
I'm going to defer that to Tyler Mitchell to respond.
So this one in particular is a vertical curve. Just south of the proposed lots.
And you don't know if it's an issue, you're just trying to get them to confirm whether it is, and if it is, if they don't have site distance, we wouldn't want to approve it, would we?
That's correct. That's why we're asking this question.
So if we approve it with these conditions and they can't show that they have site distance, then it won't move forward.
That's what you stated, correct, Mary?
That's correct.
Yeah. It'd be rescinded.
Any other questions for staff? Okay. No one signed up on this? Sign, please. So I have no one signed up for this? Is there anybody that failed to sign up for this that wished to speak? Okay. I'll close the public hearing. Mary, anything else?
I don't have anything
All right,
further.
then I'll entertain a motion.
Move we approve with the conditions as stated by the staff.
Okay. Mr. Bowyer's made a motion to approve. Do I have a second? Second. Mr. Davis seconded the motion. Any question or comments on the motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion's approved. Okay, at this time then we'll open the public hearing for case number SC 23-3, and we're going to have several of these that are by the same applicant, I presume,
That is correct.
and it's very similar, so I'll make sure if you're here to speak on any of these, I'll give you that opportunity, but these are fairly much the same. So Mary, let me just first ask, does anybody need to clear any prior communication on any of these on the BFLC? Okay. All right, Mary, give us the first one then on SC 23-3. We'll open the public hearing on that one.
Okay. The public notices were sent out for the case number SC 23-3, which is a case number for a concurrent review. With concurrent reviews, the Planning Commission approves preliminary plat, and then Planning and Zoning staff administratively approves the final plat. The final plat shall then be recorded in 90 days. Due to the required installation of common drives along County Road 87, the applicant would not have been able to record the final plat within this 90-day timeframe. So Planning and Zoning staff recommended the applicant submit a preliminary plat application in lieu of the concurrent application submitted. Therefore, the case number changed from SC 23-3 to SBP 23-5. Otherwise, there's no other change in anything. So there's no changes to the notice other than the case number. All requirements for the public notice are in compliance with subdivision regulations. So this is for a 5-lot subdivision. It's located in Planning District 13. The citizens of Baldwin County have not elected, or excuse me, Planning District 13 have not implemented zoning. There's no traffic study required. There are no drainage improvements. There are no new streets. This is your preliminary plat layout. This is a close-up view showing the lots, minimum 3-acre lots. This is your site map, aerial map. Drainage pattern will remain the same after the subdivision is created, and there are no new roads or improvements slated to be built as part of the subdivision. The written drainage narrative has been reviewed and accepted by Baldwin County Highway Department. These are your utility letters. There are wetlands that are visible on the map. The applicant has not provided a wetland delineation, but has invoked section 5.2.2 of the subregs, which shows the applicable 50-foot wetland setback. They've added a note on the plat that states that any future subdivision or development of lots shall comply with the wetland requirements of the subdivision regulations and zoning ordinance applicable at such time future subdivision or development. And staff recommends the case be approved subject to Baldwin County subdivision regulations, no conditions for approval, just your standard protocol. And I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, any questions for staff? All right, I have no one signed up. I'm going to ask just to make sure, is anybody that failed to sign up that wish to speak to this? Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing. No question or comments, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve subject to staff conditions.
Okay, Mr. Bice made a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Mr. Mullock seconded the motion. Any questions or comments on the motion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, we'll open public hearing on case SC 23-4. This is the BFLC Elam Creek East Phase 4 subdivision. Ms. Mitchell?
All right, and this is on page 169. This is another 5-lot subdivision by BFLC, and it's also in District 13, which is unzoned, and this is on Lindholm Road. And you can see the lots here, 5 lots. Drainage pattern will remain the same. There's no proposed infrastructure. Utilities, subject property, there are no wetlands on this one. And so we recommend approval, and there are no conditions other than the typical to record in 90 days.
Any questions for staff?
I have one. It's kind of related to this one and the one before, some of these ones that are following. I know we're tracking as to when they when these things cumulative trigger a traffic study.
Yes, I know Wheezy, who was with the highway before, and Tyler, they were kind of keeping track, and they'd reached about 50 lots, and then they did the Grand River RV Park, so they did a traffic study for that. And then I know there's a bigger development they have coming, some kind of a commercial site plan, I believe, and they're doing a traffic study for that one. And so highway feels like those two for now have fulfilled those requirements for looking at traffic, but we have let the applicants know that, that we are keeping tabs and that they are subject to a traffic study in the future if they meet, another threshold of lots. And you can see here, I have some of the names. You can see they keep re-subdividing the larger lots into smaller ones.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? I have no one signed up for this one. So anyone that failed to sign up that wish to speak on this item? Okay, I'll close the public hearing. If there are no other comments or questions, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion, we approve.
Mr. Davis made a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Mr. Mullet, second the motion. Any questions, comments on the motion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we'll open the public hearing now for case number SC 23-5. This is BFLC 8 Mile Creek East Phase 3 subdivision.
And this is located on page 181 in your report. It's a 5-lot subdivision located in Planning District 13, currently unzoned. No traffic study required, no drainage improvements required, no new streets being proposed. This is your preliminary plat layout. This is just an up-close view showing your minimum lot sizes, total acreages. Your site map, aerial map. As far as drainage, the drainage pattern will remain the same after the subdivision is created. There will be no new roads or impervious improvements slated to be built. Highway has reviewed and accepted the drainage report. These are utilities. There are visible wetland indicators per the generalized wetland mapper. Applicant has not provided a wetland delineation, but has invoked the 5.2.2E and showed the applicable 50-foot wetland setback and placed the applicable note on the plat. This is another one that is being requested for the site distance. And again, the applicant has not shown that on here. As requested, they may need additional field work to provide the necessary data. So staff does recommend approval with the following conditions. Unless otherwise satisfied by Baldwin County Highway Department, site distance shall be shown on the final plat before recording. If the applicant cannot show the site distance can be achieved for all lots, the conditional approval will be rescinded within 30 days of preliminary plat approval of the same. Once the applicant has satisfied the request by Baldwin County Highway Department regarding site distance, planning and zoning staff will issue administrative final plat approval. The final plat approval should be circulated for signatures and recorded in 90 days. And I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, any questions for staff? Okay. Once again, no one signed up to speak. I'll ask it again. Anybody here that wishes to speak to this didn't sign up? Okay. Close the public hearing. Same as before. Any question, comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve conditions subject to conditions of staff.
Okay. Mr. Mullet's made the motion to approve subject to staff conditions. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Booyer, second the motion. Any questions, comments on the motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we'll open public hearing now for case number SC 23-6, which is the BFLC Elam Creek West Phase 5 subdivision.
All right, this is on page 181, another 5-lot subdivision, also in 13. No infrastructure is proposed. And one thing I just want to point out is that some of these, they're not requesting the site distance because they're not on curves, like the lots are not on curves, are on hills. So that's one of the reasons my two have not had that stipulation. Here's the proposed or the existing drainage, utilities, wetlands. They're doing the same, showing a 50-foot wetland building setback, and we recommend approval with no conditions.
Are they required to share a driveway on 5A and 6?
Not because of the classification of the road, they're not required on Lindholm at this point.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for staff?
I have a question. It's in regards to the wetlands, what they're invoking. On the last one, it was what, 5.2.2, and in this one is 4.5.8.
I probably just have the wrong, to be honest, I don't know what this number is off the top of my head. I probably just have the wrong one, because the other is the correct one. Yes.
Okay, any other questions? All right, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to recommend approval subject to conditions outlined by staff. Or this one?
You're not recommending, you're approving this one?
Recommend for approval.
Okay, so Mr. Welks made a motion to approve, subject to staff.
Second.
Mr. Bias is second motion. Any question or comments? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, the last of the BFLCs, I'll open the public hearing for case number SC 23-8, BFLC Forest Acres subdivision.
This is on page 207 of your staff report. This is a little different than our typical subdivision. This is a 12-lot subdivision, but it's considered a large lot subdivision, whereas all lots are greater than 20 acres. So there's some different requirements for it. It's located in Planning District 13. It is unzoned. All lots are 20 acres. There are no new streets proposed. Per section 4.5.8B, no utilities are required for the subdivision, but the access that's required by section 4.5.8D shall accommodate future installation of utilities. This is your preliminary plat layout. Up close, showing each lot is 20 acres or greater. Shows your 60-foot easement, required easement, that's from an existing road to connect between lots 1 and 12, and then runs along in between all lots. All lots do have access to that 60-foot ingress egress utility easement. Site map, aerial map. There's no drainage improvements required, no new roads, and they did provide a written drainage narrative on it, although it was not required. They did provide one. It has been reviewed and approved by Baldwin County Highway. These are your utility letters and for the health department, and again, no utilities are required for this particular subdivision. A wetland delineation was prepared by Craig Martin, Wetland Sciences. Our map shows some additional wetlands. After his wetland delineation, those potential wetlands that are jurisdictional are shown on the plat. The others were not identified to be wetlands. So the only wetlands are the ones that are reflected on the map. Staff does recommend approval with no conditions and standard protocol.
Okay.
Mary, is that going to be a private road that access these lots?
It is private.
Okay.
And what type of roadway are they required to do?
I'll defer to Highway on that, but I believe it's just
I
a
know what it used
60-foot
to be,
easement.
I'm checking to see if it's changed.
Yeah, so I don't know, when you say what type of road, are you talking about like surface material and construction? So for a large lot subdivision, all they have to prove is that they have a 60-foot easement. We don't look at the surface material or
I knew that's the way it used to be, I
anything
didn't know
like
if it still was.
That's right.
Okay.
And we don't care who maintains it, right?
That's correct, as long as they have the legal easement or access.
Okay. Any other questions for staff? A little different one here, but it's just, so it's large lots, so it's just, we don't see them very often. All right. I better check. Okay, Eve Taylor? No Eve? Yes. Oh, you would like to, all right. Okay. I'm sorry. Okay. I'll get you.
I have property adjacent to this, and I received the certified letter. That's the first information that I got about them building adjacent to my property, and I don't know. I'm concerned because I'd like to know how the water table is going to be handled. If they're going to have their own wells or septic system, will this be on public water? How is that going to be handled? Also, I don't know how are they going to protect my property from people coming onto my property if they have their own? Is there going to be a wall? Will that then stop the wildlife from coming through that way? There's water on that property is wetlands. It's the last contiguous piece of property, so people ride their horses out there, and they won't be able to do that anymore, obviously. So I have a lot of questions, but not a lot of answers. You have a 20-acre lot. I'm sorry, it's the first time I'm ever coming to this type of meeting, so if I'm asking some stupid questions, let me know.
Never a stupid question here. Mary, can you tell us again on these are going to be health department approved septic tank, or they're not?
At this time, there's not a requirement for utilities.
Not even a requirement?
No, sir.
All right, so I'll just say it this way. Due to the size of these lots, 20 acres, which we don't see very often, so and it's rare if we did with it, we would get anybody almost complaining. Most adjacent property owners would be tickled to see this as opposed to 500 lot subdivision next to them. So, but that doesn't change things. We still look at it, but they're just not, due to the size of these lots, they're not required to do a lot of the things that you're asking questions about. So obviously if they do build home, they will, I would assume, build homes on these lots. They will have to get the health department involved in approving their septic tank locations and their well locations. So
There are some black rock waterfalls on the property, back of my property, on that property, that they're very unusual, beautiful, and I'm sorry to see that it's not going to be maintained.
And give us your name again.
Sure. For the record, it's Mark, last name Miller. So I recently acquired the property, and again, as Ms. Taylor has stated, this is the first I've ever attended. So apologize, I wasn't aware that this information was available online, and I'm fighting my Apple phone trying to read as we went through here. I just recently acquired a property that will abut adjacent to that to the north, and I believe as time progresses, and the concern is preliminary, right? So preliminary, and then indicating 20 acres, you know, I'm not sure that's going to sustain over time, and of course that's why we're here for planning and zoning. However, if I'm not mistaken, I haven't even occupied the space as to yet. The utilities for electric do run through my property, so there is concern moving forward in that respect of, you know, how are they going to further the lines and the power lines, and then, you know, for that number of homes, you know, understand for the road. I'm actually kind of interested too, because apparently they've gotten approval for 9/11 service, which I'll be looking at for the property of which I just obtained. So I think that was the concern, having recently obtained a letter, which now subsequently some of the property is turned over to my name. So that's where the concern came from, why we're attending today. So appreciate y'all's time.
Okay. That's all we had signed up to speak. Was there anyone else that wished to speak? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I do want to add that this approval is strictly for 20-acre parcels. If they want to further subdivide it, they will have to come back before this planning commission and get approval. You will have another chance to come back in and speak. They will have to comply with the regulations at that time and provide utilities as necessary.
Thank you, Mary. All right, any questions for staff? Further questions for staff? I'm going to close the public hearing if I didn't do that, and at this time, then I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, Mr. Tonsmeyer's made a motion that we approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Booyer seconded the motion. Any questions or comments on the motion? I've already closed the public hearing. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
But if you've got a question, you can talk to one of our staff people. Maybe they can get that for you. All right. Let's open public hearing for case number SC 23-9 Beck Road subdivision. Does anybody need to declare any prior communication on this item? Okay, Ms. Booth.
Okay, this is located, excuse me, this is on page 220 of your staff report. Utility letters and written drainage narrative were submitted with the original package application as Ivy Place. During technical review, the applicant requested a name change to Beck Row, which planning and zoning staff has administratively approved. The preliminary plat submitted to the utility companies for the letters of availability and willingness to serve has not changed, only the name of the subdivision has changed. It is up to the planning commission if they wish to have the updated utility letters provided to correlate the name change. And further, the public notice that was sent out to adjacent property owners included the approved subdivision name, Beck Row. So this is a 3-lot subdivision. It is located in Planning District 13. It is currently unzoned. There's not a traffic study required, no drainage improvements required, no new streets. This is your preliminary plat. Up close view. Site map, vicinity map. Your written drainage narrative, the pattern will remain the same after the subdivision is created. There are no new roads nor impervious improvements slated to be built. Written drainage narrative has been reviewed and approved by Baldwin County Highway Department. Your utility letters. There are no visible wetland indicators per the generalized wetland map. And staff recommends case number SC 23-9 be approved, subject to compliance with Baldwin County subdivision regulations with the following condition for approval. E91, approved name in the easement Tolly Cobbled Lane under the subdivision name of Ivy Place. Owner submitted a name change request from Ivy Place to Beck Row. Planning and zoning staff has approved the name change request and has asked that the applicant follow up with 911 on the same. And then planning and zoning staff will issue administrative final plat approval once the applicant provides correspondence with 911 on the name change. And the final plat shall be circulated for signatures and recorded within 90 days.
Okay.
And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for staff? Okay. I think we had Mr. Seth Moore.
Yes, my name is Seth Moore with Moore Surveying. If you all have any questions about the subdivision, I'll be glad to answer for the owner.
All right, any questions for Mr. Moore? I made you walk up here for nothing.
It's okay.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, and just to remind our planning commission, you did receive 2 or 3 letters that were on this particular case item. Those were in opposition to this. So was there anybody else here on this particular item? So all we do have then is the 3 letters that were emailed and sent in. All right, I will close the public hearing. Any questions, comments before we take a motion? All right, I'll entertain a motion then.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve subject to staff conditions.
All right, Mr. Bias has made the motion that we approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Booyer, second the motion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. And we'll now go to our commission site plan approvals. We'll open the public hearing for our first case. That group is case CSP 22-44. You'll have to help me on this.
VIR. It's a VIR.
VIR.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to recuse myself from this case.
Okay. Does anybody else need to declare prior communication on this item? Okay, Ms. Rhodes.
All right. This is page 236 of your agenda. All right. This is the location of the proposed RV park. It is located in Planning District 30 and zoned both RV1 and B4. Subject property is located north of Brinks Willis Road, east of Highway 59, and west of the Foley Beach Express in Foley. It's approximately 10.1 acres. The applicant is Goodwin Mills and Kaywood, and the owner is 20801 Brinks Willis Road Park, LLC. The applicant's request is to develop a 95-unit RV park. You can see it located here on the locator map and the site map. You can see the adjacent land uses in the table below, as well as the adjacent zoning. Here are the property images, the subject property, property to the south, adjoining property to the east, and the adjoining property to the west. These are the zoning requirements within B4, and as you can see highlighted, RV parks are an allowable use within B4 zoning. And then the zoning requirements for RV1 and RV parks. This is the site plan. I've also enlarged the areas where they're going to have dumpsters. The RV site will also include 24 9x19 or 10x20 parking spaces. And here's more information regarding the site plan and the RV site layouts. The floor plans of the proposed structures that will be within the RV park, as well as the elevations, the grading and drainage plan, the erosion control plan, the drainage narrative, their ADEM and PDES permit, and their landscape plans, highlighting the different types of trees, overstory, understory, and shrubs. A little more detail regarding their landscaping, the agency comments. The only comment that will be recommended approval upon approval is the submittal of a subdivision permit as well as a commercial turnout permit. The proposed RV park does conform to the requirements of the zoning ordinance, and the site plan does meet the requirements for RV1 and B4 zoning setbacks and its allowable use. All right, so staff recommends approval of the 95-unit RV park with the following conditions. They did have a planned unit development that was approved in January of this year, so all the requirements that were in the PUD remain in effect, including the widening of Brinks-Willis Road near the entrance, and then the turn lane be modified as requested by the Highway Department, any signage. Also to address the comments from the Baldwin County Highway Department, which are in progress, and then those memorialize the closeout conditions of section 18.9.7, and this includes submittal of the as-built drawings and then requesting a final site inspection. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, any questions for staff?
I have one question. I see the entrance to the south is obvious. Can you explain a little bit about what this is to the north? It looks like that kind of goes, it doesn't go anywhere when I look at that compared to the aerial image. Is that correct? Where is that exit where is that exit going? Or what does that tee into?
I am not sure. The applicant can probably answer this question, but I'm not sure about that, that area over there about the parking. It probably just goes over to the 3 parking spaces that are highlighted.
So that is not any proposed egress or entrance or exit?
Correct.
Okay, any other questions for staff? Because I know they have a representative here, and we can address that. Okay. All right. Ms. Curry, would you like to come up?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the planning staff and planning commission. Melissa Curry with Goodwood Mills and Kaywood here on behalf of our applicant for the Villahar RV Park. And I will go ahead and just answer the gentleman's question about that entrance, or it appears to be a road, but it's really not. It's just an access area to get back to those parking spaces, which can double as additional guest spaces or access to that bath area. There's full movement to go all the way around, so it's not any type of a stub out.
Okay.
I'll just point out that all the comments that we've received from staff have been addressed. We did receive some preliminary comments from Highway Department and Traffic, and we've addressed those, and they were going to go back and re-review the drainage calculations after we revise them, and that's all that is outstanding at this point.
I'm going to make a comment, and I'll show my ignorance right off because I'm not an RVer. But we seem to have this, it's a recurring item to me that seems to be an issue, but it's the staging of RVs when they come in. In this case, the clubhouse is in the center. A lot of times it's up front, but I like it. But obviously when they come in, they have to, I would think, have to check in. You know, I have been to RV parks before, and you have to check in. So it seems to me there's no staging area that takes them out of the flow of traffic. And maybe it's just because there's not that many units and you don't have to worry about it. But we've had this before about there's no place for them to pull off, you know, out of the traffic where they can actually park their vehicle, go inside, do whatever paperwork they have to do, and that still allows other traffic to continue to flow. And then I see it on this one, but it's not always yours. I mean, it seems like a lot of the projects we have when it's RVs, they don't provide that. Am I missing something?
Well, I have actually asked our clients about that, and it's all done online. So they're already checked in when they get there.
So
They've already gotten
their
their parking or their space assigned and things like that. And then once a client, I'll call it a client, has come in and they've parked, now they're using their car to go in and out, so the RV's parked, and it's not really been an issue.
Okay. Took care of that issue. Anybody else have questions, Ms. Curry? Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I had no one else signed up. Is anybody here? It looks like mostly staff left. You're last, I know. With that, I'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion. Unless you have, first let me ask, do you have any question or comments? Anything else, Ms. Rhodes?
No, sir.
I know everybody's ready to go, but I just want to make sure we do it.
Good job on the landscape visual, too.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, you need to go to work
Do
now.
that
You
on
need to
everyone.
stay here. If they didn't do it, this was really nice.
Thank you.
It's well done. All right, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion we approve.
All right, Mr. Davis made a motion to approve. Do I have a second? Mr. Fletcher, was that you? Thank you, sir. All right, any question, comments on the motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, our last case study tonight will be case CSP 23-1, First Gulf Storage Group, LLC. Does anybody need to declare any prior communication on this item? Ms. Rhodes, you got this one too?
I do.
Okay.
This is on page 266 of your agenda packet. This is located in Planning District 37 in Zoned B3. The subject property is located at the intersection of Gafer Road Extension and State Highway 181 in Fairhope. It's approximately 7.71 acres. The applicant is SE Civil, Mr. Jared Landry, and the owner is FST and Gulf Storage Group Fairhope, LLC. The applicant's request is to construct an additional storage building that will total 40,650 square feet for mini storage use. Here's the locator map and the site map. They're surrounded by commercial land use with residential to the west, and then you can see the adjacent zoning in the table below. Some property images. Here's the subject property. Adjoining property to the north, property to the east and to the south. Here are the zoning requirements for B3, and you can see highlighted that a mini warehouse is an appropriate use under B3 zoning. Here are the mini warehouse requirements. And then the local provisions for Planning District 37. Here's the site plan and the site analysis table. I've highlighted the required parking. It includes 16 9x19 parking spots. They'll also have 17 parallel parking spots. And they will also have 6-foot ornamental aluminum fencing that will border this proposed building. I've also highlighted and enlarged the area where they're going to have a dumpster. And then a little more information about that. The floor plans of the new building, including all the different units within the building, elevations. I've also highlighted the lighting on the outside of the building, which will cast the light downward, the erosion and sediment control plans, as well as the grading and drainage plans, their drainage narrative, their landscape plans. They also have a couple of local provisions. This includes special landscape buffers, native plants, and a sidewalk requirement that I'll discuss in a little bit. The south side of the proposed building will be screened with a visual barrier landscape buffer. And here is a more detailed look at their landscape plan. And then they have local provisions, like I said before, regarding wetlands. So within this project, which is a major project, sidewalks are required within Planning District 37. And they do have a 50-foot wetland buffer. It was determined by wetland delineation that the pond on the property is a non-jurisdictional wetland, and so that requires a 50-foot wetland buffer. Because they have sidewalk requirements along all their classified roads, and Gayfer Road is a functionally classified road, the sidewalk will encroach within this 50-foot wetland buffer. So they will be requesting a variance from the sidewalk requirements to allow that 50-foot landscape buffer, and this will be a condition upon approval. And then there's the 50-foot non-disturbed wetland buffer. And as you can see, the sidewalk encroaches within this buffer. Here are agency comments. So the proposed storage facility addition does conform to the requirements of the zoning ordinance. The site plan meets the B3 setbacks. We see no other issues. And then staff recommends approval of the additional storage building with the following conditions: that they attain a variance from section 2.3.37.3E of the zoning ordinance as it pertains to the sidewalk requirements for major projects. The sidewalk will be located within the 50-foot wetland buffer requirement as stated within section J of section 2 within Planning District 37. To memorialize that this is just for a mini warehouse only, that there will not be multiple dwellings, and if it turns into that, they'll have to apply for a planned unit development. And then also memorialize those closeout conditions within section 18.9.7, which includes as-built, and then requesting a site review. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for staff?
Is this sidewalk a sidewalk to nowhere?
Yes.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
I do want to chime in, though, that this is a great example, though, of where the public is getting a lot of benefit from this sidewalk requirement, because this is a major intersection. There's a lot of development here. And now this developer who, you know, I want to be careful what I say, but as far as I know, they didn't blink an eye at any of these requirements. I think they're in this business. They know how to do a project like this, and they just put it in. And now the public isn't going to have to fund this sidewalk. This developer's putting it in as part of a profitable project. So it's great to see that, and it's been great to work with this
Well,
developer.
Matthew, this is a case too where we're coming back and they're kind of having to update their site requirements because of the changes we've made in the zoning
That's right.
ordinance.
And this fits, to me, for what
That's
we
right.
talked about. And this also is what you were talking about earlier, in that you've shown what are the overstory. It's now for us to decide whether or not we feel like that's enough. It's on us, is what you said earlier, to make that determination.
That's correct.
Mr. Landry, it's not enough. I'm kidding. All right, joking aside, is there any other comments for staff? Mr. Landry, you got anything you need to add? You sat here, you just will come on up and say something, but if you don't, all right, does anybody have any questions for Mr. Landry? He's the engineer that represents them, so I'm not going to make him come up. All right. Any other questions or comments? Anybody else here? I don't see anybody else, so I'm going to close the public hearing. Entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve, subject to conditions outlined by staff, or make a recommendation for approval.
All right, Mr. Bolts made a motion that we approve subject to staff conditions. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Booyer, second the motion. Any question or comments on the motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, we're getting to late hours, so let's go through this quickly. Any new business? I don't know of any. Any public comments? Okay. Staff reports?
I just want to thank each of you. This was a long meeting, a long agenda, and you had lots of good questions all the way to the very end. And I want to thank staff. This is over 300 pages, and a lot of times we forget that even as we prepare for this meeting, they're already working on next sets of, and so they have a lot of things being thrown at them, dealing with public comments coming in, and I just really had a happy feeling when I went through this packet preparing for this meeting. The team is just doing a great job, and I just want to thank them all publicly.
And, Mr. Chairman, I'd be remiss if I didn't give you at least one yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, for the meeting.
I'll make one comment. Some of the concerns that we have brought forward seems like they're getting addressed, and we're making progress in ways that suits us with some of what we're seeing as you guys are working closer with the developers, and I thank you and I thank them for that.
Okay. Legal counsel? Mr. Alvis, I know you're representing, but you got anything you need to, you sat here through all this tonight and didn't even get challenged any, so. All right, our next meeting is April the 6th, 2023, and I'm going to, again, try to say it every meeting. If I forget, I'm sorry. But I likewise appreciate our staff. Matthew and all the way through, all of you guys are great. You do a great job of preparing for this. And Mr. Mitchell, is this going to be your last time?
Yes, it will be.
Okay.
Tucker's going to take over, and he knows what he's doing. He's done it before, so we have complete confidence in him.
We appreciate what you've done, and so we'll break him in next time. All right, I have nothing else. We are adjourned.